It's in the morning edition right here on Rebroadcasting Network. Now we turn our attention to our first commentary this morning, which focuses, of course, on the 2027 political conversation, which is already beginning to take shape. And yesterday at the Nigerian Bar Association annual general conference in Port Harcourt, we got a glimpse of just how difficult that conversation could become and what was billed as a discussion on politics, people, and the Nigeria's future brought together some of the politicians already positioning themselves now ahead of the next presidential election. But it did not take long before the conversation moved from what these politicians say they want to do and what they have actually done in the past. And we're looking at past records now. And one of the most heated moments came when Omoyele Sowore challenged Rotimi Amechi over the record of politicians who have previously been in government. Amechi did not take the challenge quietly. He simply had a reply. Let's take a listen to that moment.
Lagos, there is Lagos Ibadan Railway is working or not? In my time, it was working. I don't know what's happening on that Tinubu. There is Abuja Kaduna Rail working or not?
What happened? What happened to the one?
Now, where are Rivers lawyers? Please take Sowore around. Where are the Rivers lawyers who are present? Take Sowore around.
Okay.
Sowore, I said I built that road. I built this road. I built this primary school. I built that primary school. Sowore, what is your experience?
All right, Governor.
When politicians are talking, close your mouth.
Yes. You have a right of reply. Yes. You have the floor.
And that was the conversation between one of the moments between Amechi and now the VP candidates of the NDC to the AAC presidential candidate Omoyele Sowore.
Very, very intense exchange there.
It was.
And Amechi's response is important because it's essentially saying, you don't have to dismiss us because we've been in government. Look at what we've achieved over here. Look at what we've done here. And this takes us to the very heart of our commentary this morning. As we move towards 2027, should Nigerians be looking for politicians with experience, or should they be looking for politicians with demonstrable results? Because experience sounds impressive until you begin to ask what that experience actually produced. On the other hand, calling yourself a new alternative, also an option here. It's just not enough either. At some point, Nigerians will want to know exactly what makes you different and why they should trust you with the country.
I mean, it's quite interesting every time where this plays out at the NBA conference. I mean, that platform is one that is the full house of those who are thinking, those not just supporters who will cheer you on for every point that you make, but those who will critically analyze what you said and the questions I'm going to reel in, after and after. I mean, these politicians were not simply addressing a campaign rally. They're not. They were talking to those who asked them the questions. They were being questioned in a room full of lawyers, professionals, and people who understood institutions and public accountability, at least. So when Amechi said, judge us by our achievement, what achievements are the Nigerian people going to judge Amechi by? And then that sounds kind of straightforward, right? But it also creates an obligation. If you want Nigerians to judge you by your achievement, then Nigerians should be allowed to examine those achievements properly. What was delivered? What was said to be delivered? And what was delivered? There are those who still rate the Buhari administration as no figure at all, which Amechi belongs to, that administration. And then, what did it cost you? How much did you spend? What did you say at the time you're going to deliver, and what did you deliver? What difference did they make? And perhaps most importantly, did those projects and policies continue to deliver value to the people after the political office holder left?
Important questions.
Continuity.
But I mean, that argument, of course, was very much on the front burner. For Peter Obi, he offered a slightly different perspective on Nigeria's problems. Rather than focusing on what has been built, Obi went directly to the country's productivity crisis and its consequences for ordinary Nigerians. Let's take a listen to him.
Today, Nigeria is one of the hungriest countries of the world. We got worse in the past 3 years, where we now move from where we are to 109 in the hungriest country. Some of you might not know that in the past 2 years, Ukraine that is at war gave us grain to fight hunger. We are hungry because Nigeria is not a productive country. If we decide today to invest in critical areas of development, which include pulling people out of poverty, by investing in agriculture, we can make more money from agriculture than we make from oil. Countries are doing it. And I'm going to use 1, 2, 3 countries around us to show example. Today, our most staple food is rice. Nigeria produces less than 10 million tons of unmilled rice. A tiny country like Bangladesh produces 60 million tons of unmilled rice, almost 10 times what Nigeria will produce. Bangladesh side is 148,000 square kilometers. That is the size of Bangladesh. That is the size of our 2 biggest states. Niger State at 76.3.
And there is a lot packed into that statement made by Peter Obi of the NDC. I mean, Peter Obi is essentially concerning or connecting Nigeria's poverty crisis to the question of productivity. His point is that the country cannot continue to consume without producing enough of what you want to consume. And when production is weak, poverty and hunger becomes much harder to tackle. But what makes that statement particularly striking is the comparison he makes with Ukraine. He is pointing out that even a country dealing with war has been able to send grain to Nigeria while we continue to struggle with food insecurity. This is not simply an economic statistic. It raises a bigger question about the capacity of a country with Nigeria's population, land, and resources to feed its own people.
And in fact, that conversation is one that becomes bigger than the politicians on that stage, because whether you are in support or not, the issue he's raising is one that Nigerians can relate to. Food prices are a major part of pressure households are facing right now. In fact, one of the reasons why most people are not able to save or reserve money for other expenses is because of the amount of money they spend on food. People are not sitting at home debating productivity in academic terms. They're actually, going to the markets and discovering for themselves that what they could afford months ago now costs significantly more. So when a politician says we have a productivity problem, the question for us should be, what exactly would you do to change that? How do you move Nigeria from importing what it should be producing to producing enough for its own population, and then eventually get to the point where we even send it back? And I think that takes us back to the earlier argument about experience. Politicians asking Nigerians in 2027, they will have different stories to tell.
Trust the candidates, they say. Trust me in their words. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But the Nigerian people at this point have moved from I'm going to do to how are you going to do. Some will say they have the experience. Some will point to projects they've delivered. Some will say they have managed businesses or stayed successfully. Others will say the established political class has had enough opportunities and that Nigeria needs a completely different approach. But whichever argument they make, there is one thing voters should be demanding from all of them: evidence that their ideas can actually work. I mean, Peter Obi has gone over this Bangladesh country, over Ukraine in several interviews. Now, the Nigerians want to know, how are you going to make production even better in the country?
And that is where Showere's take becomes particularly interesting, because he did not spare Mr. Peter Obi. After Obi's intervention, Showere, it was his time to speak, and he turned the argument back towards Obi's own record during his time as governor of Anambra. His criticism was very specific. He challenged Obi over education and healthcare during his tenure and raised the issue of strikes involving lecturers and doctors. Let's hear exactly what he said.
Okay. You may like him as a person, but he did not perform as a governor. That is the truth. And he took Amechi and his principal. And next is...
We're talking fuel subsidy. Where you start? Should we remove fuel subsidy? And if we do, what do we do with the savings?
If there's anyone who has been consistent about non-removal of fuel subsidy, it has been me. And it took Amechi and his principal almost 10 years to catch up with me. They have now reversed their position on fuel subsidy. The question about subsidy is, who are you subsidizing? You are subsidizing the elite, you are subsidizing the governors. The only people who are doing well since they removed subsidy are the governors of states. And when they talk about subsidy, they make it sound like they have not removed subsidy before. I was a student in 1989, they removed subsidy. In 1990, they removed subsidy. They said Nigeria will be better. We are in 2026, they are still removing subsidy. They are robbing Peter Obi to pay for that Tinubu. That is what the removal of subsidy is all about. The poor people of this country only benefit from subsidy from petrol, gasoline. There is no subsidy on kerosene. What did they build with it? There is no subsidy on A1 jet fuel. What did they build with it? Nothing. Please, don't let these politicians lie to you. I love one thing that Amechi said. He said, apart from Showore and Adebayo.
Well, that's Mr. Showore there giving his takes on the subsidy issue, the subsidy debate, and some of the other conversations that were raised at that particular conference, Marion.
Right. Now, any of the candidates say, judge me by my achievements, Nigerians should be able, and Nigerians should be able to look at the records to say, what does your record say? If you say, judge me because my policies, I want to reel out, I want to return subsidy, I want to make better use of the subsidy monies, I want to make production better, and all. Come on, Nigerians are open to scrutinizing and analyzing who is fit to run office. And if the current administration says they'll be here to 2031 because they've made some bold economic decisions that were difficult to take, but it was the right thing to do, that's what they say, and that's what you want to go by, it's okay for Nigerian people to look at it critically and examine where they should go with that. So, I mean, it's what makes, the NBA exchange even much more interesting, and than just looking at politicians who seem like a panel of judges, my co-debaters. I'm here to move the motion that you should vote for me or not vote for me and all that, or not vote for my colleagues. That happened at the NBA conference in Port Harcourt, River State yesterday.
And in fact, the biggest issue is not who won the argument, whether it was Showore, Obi, or Amechi. The bigger issue is that politicians have now put their records and ideas on the table. Nigerians will have the opportunity to interrogate all of this before Election Day. And it is not going to be judged by who trended the most on social media, who had the highest applause at the conference. The real decision, of course, will be done in the coming days, and particularly on Election Day. We'll put a pause on that conversation for now.